Welcome to PICUReview, where today we'll be looking at the circulatory system. So, what is the circulatory system? The circulatory system is a network of blood vessels and organs which move blood around the body to maintain homeostasis. Essentially, a road network for the body. There is over 100,000 kilometres of blood vessels throughout the human body, but don't worry, we'll split this down into the 5 basic types. The circulatory system starts with the heart, which is the blood pump for the body. Blood is expelled from the heart into the arteries. Whilst most of the time the blood it carries is oxygenated, there is an exception to this rule, so the definition is that arteries move away from the heart. These then split into smaller arterioles until they can become the smallest blood vessel we have, capillaries. These are some of the primary functional units of the circulatory system, where substances can enter and exit the bloodstream. The capillaries then join together to form venules, and finally veins. Veins then return blood to your heart for the next cycle to begin. Conversely to arteries, veins usually carry deoxygenated blood or oxygen-depleted blood, as the body has used up the oxygen for energy. However, by definition, vein goes into the heart, as there are once again exceptions to the rule. For blood always moves through blood vessels in this basic order. They deliver oxygen, nutrients such as glucose and electrolytes, and hormones to the tissue, and facilitate the expulsion of waste products such as carbon dioxide, lactate, and urea, the byproducts of energy production. So, what are the differences between blood vessels? Most blood vessels in the human body are made of 3 layers: Tunica Externa, Tunica Media, and Tunica Interna. These names helpfully give us a clue as to their position. The Tunica Externa is the tough outer layer of the blood vessel. It contains nerves and, in larger blood vessels, capillaries to feed the tissues themselves. The Tunica Externa connects to organs and to connective tissue to anchor the blood vessel in place and to keep it from moving or twisting because you don't want it getting tangled. The Tunica Media is the middle layer, with media meaning middle. This layer is made of smooth muscle rings and elastic fibres. Smooth muscle wraps around the blood vessel like a ring on a finger, allowing for muscular contraction and relaxation to change the internal diameter of the blood vessel, known as the lumen size. The elastic fibres allow for the blood vessels to stretch and recoil within the cardiac cycle. The Tunica Interna is the internal layer of the blood vessels. It is extremely thin and is one continuous layer throughout all blood vessels, known as the endothelium. So the same layer that lines the inside of the heart runs through all the arteries, veins, and capillaries in one long sheet. This layer is smooth, reducing friction and resistance from blood being in contact with the blood vessel walls. So what is the difference between the composition of each type of blood vessel? As stated before, arteries are blood vessels that move away from the heart, not necessarily blood vessels that carry oxygenated blood. Structurally, arteries have the thickest walls of all the blood vessels and a relatively large lumen. Arteries closest to the heart have a large number of elastic fibres in the tunica media, allowing the blood vessels to be flexible with the cardiac cycle. Being close to the pump means that these blood vessels have to respond to high pressure changes that are generated with each beat. As the heart beats, a wave of blood is pushed through the blood vessel, stretching the walls like you're pulling on a rubber band. However, when the heart relaxes, the force pushing these walls to open relaxes, causing the walls to snap back inwards as though you've now released that rubber band. That snap back effect continues to propel the blood forwards, even in between beats, creating a very steady forward flow. Examples of these large blood vessels would be the aorta or pulmonary artery. As arteries split and become smaller, the tunica media becomes less elastic and has a high density of smooth muscle rings encircling the artery, like a ring on a finger. This allows the artery to contract or relax to control blood flow and is key in maintaining blood pressure. At this point, about 3/4 of the tunica media is made of smooth muscle. However, as muscle is less stretchy, there is less elasticity in these arteries. The femoral artery is an example of this type. Arterioles are the transition between arteries and capillaries and control the flow of blood into the capillaries by increasing or decreasing the resistance by increasing or decreasing their lumen size. They have much thinner walls, with their tunica media containing 1 to 2 layers of smooth muscle to be able to contract or relax in response to the body's needs. Essentially, these are the bouncers allowing blood in or out of the capillaries. They can also spasm closed to try to stop blood flow if it detects bleeding. Capillaries are the smallest of the blood vessels, which act as a bridge between the arterial and venous systems. They are only just wide enough for a single red blood cell to pass through single file. Their walls are one-layered, the media interna. These very thin walls allow substances such as oxygen, water, white blood cells, fluid, sugar, and hormones to leave the bloodstream and enter the interstitial space that surrounds the cells for it to diffuse into the cells where it's needed, whilst allowing for waste products to enter the bloodstream so it could be excreted from the body. Examples of this could be carbon dioxide, urea, lactate, or even heat. There are over 20 billion capillaries throughout the body, meaning there is a huge surface area for this exchange to take place over. So, the movement of substances can happen very efficiently. Capillaries are more concentrated in organs with high energy demands like the brain, kidneys, and liver, as those organs need more oxygen and sugar to function, so it is delivered more efficiently. Not all capillaries are open at the same time, with arterioles stopping the blood flow when the energy demands of the tissues are being met with the number of open capillaries. However, if the energy demand increases, more capillaries can open, allowing more oxygen, sugar, and waste clearance from the area. A very visible example of this is when you're exercising. More capillaries open up near the skin to cool you down, making your face go red. In this example, excess heat is the waste product being removed. As the capillaries leave the tissues, they start to join back together to form venules. Venules are the junctions at which capillaries meet and join together. The first venules are another place in which exchange of molecules can take place. Venules have a very thin wall which don't maintain their shape without the blood to hold it open. As the venules continue towards the vein, their walls get thicker and molecules are no longer able to enter or leave through the walls, as there is now more structures in the way. These walls have very little smooth muscle in them. The veins are the final stop on the blood's journey around the body, before returning circulation to the heart. As we remember from earlier, veins go into the heart. They have very thin walls compared to the diameter of the lumen, with a thin tunica media and a very thick tunica externa. Blood in veins is at a much lower pressure than the arteries, as it is much further from the heart and the push that it provides. And the blood often has a long way to go against gravity. For example, from your toes back up to your heart is a long way to move against gravity. Backflow is prevented by the presence of one-way valves. As blood moves up through the valve, it is pushed open. However, when the heart relaxes and the pressure decreases, the blood falls back down onto the valves, pushing them closed so that there can be no backflow. This feature is unique to veins, so I always remember it as V for valve, V for vein. The blood then enters the heart via the vena cava, and the next video will cover the cardiac flow cycle now that you have the basics of blood vessels. To check your learning from this video, I have popped some questions on the screen with answers in the description. Please feel free to leave a comment if you have any questions and I will do my best to answer it. References and other resources are also linked in the description. Thank you for joining me on PICUReview and I hope to see you again.